Hi, everybody. It's Mrs. Martin. I'm excited to be giving your book talk for the month of October. I would love to be doing this in person, but video is the next best thing. We're going to go through some great spooky reads since it's the month of October and giving you some ideas of books to put on hold in the library. And at the end of the book talk, I'll also be talking through a couple of helpful tips about ebooks using Mac and Via and a couple of other things just about using the library in general, since it's a little bit different here this fall. Let's go ahead and get started. The first book I'm sharing is the first in a series. If you are into werewolves, this would be the perfect one to check out. The first book is called Rise of the Wolf, and it is part of the Werewolf, boy, that's a tongue twister, series in fantasy by Curtis Jobling. If you can imagine a world ruled by werelords, these are men and women who can shift into bears and lions and serpents, just kind of by thinking about it. Drew is our main character, and he suddenly discovers he's not only a werewolf, but he is the long-lost heir to the murdered Wolf King's throne. And so he has to use his powers and brains to survive in a land that's suddenly full of enemies, people who do not wish for him to be in this position. There's an awful ruler, Leopold the Lion, who Drew's kind of up against, and he's got to be the one to unite the kingdom against them. And there's all sorts of people who don't want him to have this role. If you are a fan of Aragon or any other great fantasy series where you've got good versus evil and you've got people fighting for power, animals fighting for power, this would be a terrific one to pick up. And especially with that werewolf element, I think it's just perfect for the month of October. Bats Past Midnight by Sharon Jennings, a mystery book, and great if you're looking for a really quick read. This is about Sam and Simon. They call themselves the Bat Gang. And these two guys are out past midnight, as you can tell from the title. They are out way later than they're supposed to be, and they find a bunch of money, hundreds of dollars, in the middle of the street. No one's around. They're afraid to go to the police to find out where this money could have come from or to tell anybody about it because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble for being out so late. They see a car hanging around the area where that money was located, and they think the car looks, kind of fancy, a nicer car than really is ever around that area of town. So they're trying to figure out the mystery of, is this car connected to this money in some way? But when they try to find out more, they end up in trouble at school, at home, and with the police. And they're investigating further, and it kind of leads to this big mystery. Can these guys discover what this money's all about without getting themselves into deep trouble? That's the story, Bats Past Midnight, and it's about 100 pages, maybe even less than that, but very suspenseful, short chapters, a real quick read, and a couple of characters that are a lot of fun to read about. Bad Girls Don't Die by Katie Allender. This is one of my favorites to share at this time of year because who doesn't like a story where a girl and her sister, who haven't always gotten along the best anyway, start acting strangely toward one another because the younger sister, starts forgetting things, starts acting strangely, and doesn't remember even doing it. Alexis feels like her life is kind of in bad shape anyway. Her parents have been fighting. She's not getting along well with kids at school. Honestly, she just feels sort of ignored altogether, both at school and at home. And then Casey, her younger sister, is acting stranger than ever. She's obsessed with dolls, for one thing. She's been using really old-fashioned language, words that people don't ever say. She seems to lose track of chunks of time. Her eyes are changing colors, going from blue to green, seemingly without reason. And then when Alexis will ask her about things that she does, sometimes Casey seems to have no recollection, no memory of having done some of those things. The old house where they live also seems to be acting strangely. Doors are opening and closing by themselves. Water will start boiling on the stove that isn't even on, right? They'll walk into the room and it's boiling on the stove without anybody having been in there. All kinds of weird things going on. Alexis feels that some presence must be taking over in her home and perhaps taking over her sister. Is it possible that's happening? And if so, how is she going to be the one to stop all of that when no one will listen to her? That's this book, Bad Girls Don't Die, and it is the first in a series. So if you've read this one already, we do have the second book in the series as well, by the same author. I really liked this one, and I hope you will too. The Ghost's Grave by Peg Carrot. This author is known for writing really good mystery stories. Again, another nice short read. This one is set in present day, but it brings us back in time a little bit to a ghost story. Josh thinks it's going to be the worst summer of his life. He's being sent to live with his great aunt, who he thinks is a total weirdo. But the summer really gets interesting fast because he meets the ghost of a coal miner who was killed in a mine explosion. And that miner's name is Willie. Willie's been waiting years for somebody to dig up his leg, right? The explosion caused him to lose his leg. He wants somebody to dig up his leg, rebury it with the rest of him so that he can finally be at peace. Well, Josh, when he meets Willie, and Willie's ghost, he says, sure, I'll do it. He goes to the cemetery, digs around, and he finds more than Willie's leg. He finds a box of cash in the grave. He's wondering why that is. He wonders how far the person will go to get the money back. This is a great suspenseful story with a ghost element. Again, another nice, quick read with that ghost part. The ghost here is not so much, the kind of ghost that's going to keep you awake at night. It's not a scary story, more of a suspenseful story with the mystery of the money. So if that sounds like a good one, check that out. Or anything really by Peg Carrot. She always writes a mystery that is worth a read. And speaking of mysteries, and back to the doll thing from a couple books ago, K.R. Alexander wrote this one. We have a few of her books in the library, and this one was really popular a few years back when it came through our book fair. If you've not yet picked it up, the book trailer I'm going to show you might convince you. Let me tell you a little bit before I show you the video. Josie always liked visiting her grandma. Her grandma lived out in the country. But when her mom loses her job and they're forced to relocate along with Josie's sister Annie, she realizes she does not really like the country that much. Let's find out why by watching the video about The Collector.
When we moved in with Grandma Jeannie, something just didn't feel right. And she had these rules. 1, never leave your windows open after dark. 2, no dolls in the house. And 3, never, ever go near the house in the woods. Josie. Look for The Collector at your Scholastic Book Fair. It's looking for you.
Ugh. Oh, gives me chills every time. So creepy. If you like a story that gives you goosebumps, check that one out. The Collector. Again, we do have other books by Alexander in the library. So if you've already read this one, of course, I'm forgetting the name of her more recent one, but I can help you out with that down here. Ugh, spooky. One last one to think about in terms of an eerie, spooky, creepy story, I wanted to share a reminder for those who were here as sixth graders or as seventh graders last year. We do have that Mac and Via app that is great for reading books on your iPad, and I'll do a quick reminder about how to actually access those in a second. Here is one book I found by searching supernatural books on the app. The book is called The 13th Floor by Scott Welvert, I think is how you say his name. It's about a kid named Sam who is not really sure about the new group of friends that he's made. He's excited at first because it's a popular group of kids, but if you've ever joined up with some friends and then sort of started to question whether or not these are the kind of people you want to hang out with, that's what Sam's going through. They play the same online video game, which has been a good thing, except they bully other gamers, and that makes Sam feel uncomfortable. And then they all start playing this game called The 13th Floor. It's a game that has been banned for violence and gore, so people aren't supposed to be playing it, but they've managed to get their hands on a copy of it anyway. And they find the game so hypnotic, right? They get so addicted to this game, they can't stop playing, even after bad things start happening to them. So with this online game, they get so hooked on it, and then these awful things begin to happen to them while playing the game, and they can't stop. I think it's a fascinating kind of an idea, and if you're somebody who plays a lot of games, you might really get kind of interested in reading this book to find out how Sam handles the situation and what kinds of things go on. Again, with sort of that spooky, not keep you awake kind of scary, but certainly on the scarier side type of a story. To find this book, because it is not one that we have down here on the shelves in the library, it is, though, one that we have on our Mac and Via app. You can use your app on your iPad. It looks like this when you download it from self-service. Or you can go to the Library Media Center homepage. When you go there, you look for that little pinwheel symbol and click on it. When you're logging in, be sure that you are logged in under Valley Middle School of Apple Valley and click Login. For a student, you're going to use your ID number as your username. For staff, we do use our first and last name. Your password is your Colab password. There are lots of ways to search on Mac and Via. You can search by title, by author. You can search by your grade level or by a reading level. You can even search by a language. Today I'm searching by a category. So because I was in the mood for something spooky, I went down toward the bottom of the list of categories and clicked on Supernatural. And from there, this happened to be one of the first books up on the top. You'll notice that the book title has one of these little red dots on it, which does mean the book is currently checked out by someone else. So if I wanted to read this book or if I wanted to check it out, I would have to press this button that says Request. The system, when the book is available, would send me an email to let me know the book is ready for me to read, and then I'd go ahead and download it on my iPad. A couple other quick reminders. You can visit the homepage in the library for information on new books, other resources, and updates on what's going on in the library. You can absolutely contact myself or Mrs. Kump on Schoology or stop down to the library if you have a question. I hope if you have any book titles that sound good, you're going to keep track of those books in some way, whether that's on your iPad or in a notebook. Especially if you're already reading something and you think, gosh, that one sounded good, make sure that you write it down somewhere or record it somewhere so that you're able to go back to that list later. Ask your friends for recommendations. Have a running list going so that when you need something to read or want a good book, you have a list to go to. One last thing I want to mention is just a reminder about Schoology. Mrs. Kump does send you a message on Schoology when the book you've placed on hold is ready for you to come pick up. I know that when you put that book on hold, the system does automatically come up with a message that says the book is available and ready. You will want to wait for that Schoology message from Mrs. Kump that says your book is ready. And that just gives us some time to get the book ready for you. We really appreciate that, and we want to help you out. Thanks so much for taking time to listen to the book talk. Please let us know if we can help you in any other way. In the meantime, happy reading.